Welcome, podcast peeps. Welcome back. Welcome back to the show. Special show today. I may say that a lot, but it really is today. I really feel that way. I'm just feeling good today. I don't know. We're gonna crown two new champions on the show, so that's always a good start. Along with all the sports stuff, the mailbag questions, everything we got going on, we're gonna crown two new champions today. One, of course, we know Villanova dominated Monday night, won the Final Four, won the NCAA title. Their one shining moment, dominated over Michigan. But also, in case you didn't know, the day before we crowned a new MFST fantasy basketball champion. And Dan just told you in the highlights, New York Storm, you're not going to beat me 3 times. Dan also said, it's not a new champion. You know, are we going to crown a new champion or old champion? He also said, we're not going to crown a new champion. Same old champion, not going to beat me 3 times. Our new MFST fantasy basketball champion, Daniel Kalura, New York Storm. My co-host is Dan Shaw. What up, dude?
I don't want to say anything.
How you like that intro? That was the best intro we ever had.
That was a good intro there. It broke my soul. So I'm hurting. I'm limping into the podcast right now after that introduction. That was good, Brandon. I knew there was going to be something coming.
Well, you promised me cake last week, and I'm not getting cake, so I feel it's only right that I return the favor and actually do something for you. It's just for you.
Yeah, thank you. Congrats to our new champ. I'm going to use an excuse out of the New Breed playbook: scheduling and injuries. Who would have? I mean, Blake Griffin going down, Tyreek Evans just pieced out towards the end of the year. John Wall came back for a game, and then he was like, "I'm not going to play another one. No way, man. I'm just going to stick to that one." So, I mean, towards the end, if you looked at my roster at the last game, I mean, I was going ditch effort. On everything. I dropped Blake, I dropped Tyreek, I dropped basically all my guys that got me there in hopes of it. And sadly, guys like Cameron Payne, you can't really rely on in the fantasy basketball championship. So I lost. I'm a runner-up, but at least I make it to the championship games.
Hey, that's how I felt last year. So did I. I got a runner-up title.
Yeah, congrats.
See, now you can't talk bad about it because you got one too. You need to hype it up. But he beat you 3 times in one season. That happened. But you were in bad trouble probably Saturday. I didn't feel right to me. Y'all both were going not necessarily full strength, but 8 full players, full roster going head up on Sunday for the championship. But just dominated, man. He just dominated. He had a good team.
Yeah. I mean, he got Kevin Durant back at the right time, and a couple of his other players continued to play. So, it worked out for him. I'm not going to complain too much. I'm not going to be like you, Brandon, throwing out all these complaints calling for committee meetings every other weekend. So, good win. I'll come back next year, and we're only a week into baseball, but my team is so much better than everybody else's. It's unreal.
It really is. It really is. Before I forget, as far as your committee meetings comment, well, we need to have an IR spot. We got one in baseball. We didn't have one in football or basketball. We got one in baseball, and it probably would have helped you out in basketball, Dan, towards the end. And that's what screwed me. Mike Conley went down weeks into the season. He was, I think, my 2nd or 3rd round pick. Kevin Love went down halfway through the season. I think it got about guys that got like Gordon Hayward, an IR spot would have helped a lot because at least you can move that guy without releasing him and add some value to your team and keep a full lineup going. But
let me mark that down. Okay. All right.
Oh, I got it. You ain't got to. I got it. It's in my notes.
It's filed for the committee meeting. I forgot.
Yeah, I got a file going here. I got a dossier, the Reed dossier of infractions committed upon me in these fantasy leagues. So, committee meetings. But yes, in baseball, I don't know what the hell you're doing, Dan. Something is askew. Something is a foul. Because I'm gonna tell y'all, a really good score this week is in, I don't remember what it is exactly right now, 300 something, mid 300s is a really good score right now for the league, tops of the league. Dan's got like 580. I mean, he's up by like 200 points on everybody else in the league. So I don't know what's going on.
I know things. Listen to check out the website, myfantasysportstalk.com. You might know things too. So Brandon, you should check that out.
Well, I'm not doing bad. I mean, it's just that
No.
you're embarrassing the rest of the league. This is abnormal. Something is not right here. So I'm in the process of going through the league settings, filtering out the injustices I see, and I'm going to pick something out. I promise you by June, I'll have infractions against you. Just, I don't know, little tidbits that none of the rest of us knew or something like that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But congrats on the big start to the baseball season, because you need this title, man. You need this title. So right now you're still just one title ahead of me. And I know baseball is big for you. Like NBA is big for me. Baseball is big for you because you are killing it. But I noticed you didn't invite Susan Bianco back in the league.
No, she went silent after she was a silent winner. I don't know.
No, maybe she's bored with us.
Susan.
She's probably bored with us, to be honest with you. Just swept through that My Fantasy Sports Talk League. So I don't know. It's a long season though. I'm checking it. I'm making moves. Got to win a title. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. Orlando's beating me right now, the baseball virgin. So I got work to do. But here's the rundown for today's show. We're about to recap the Final Four, of course. All the surprises. Cinderella was put to bed, and I think the best team overall in the country ended up winning it. So we're going to recap the Final Four. Also going to talk about the first week of the Major League Baseball in the house. Just little news and notes of what's going on over the first week of baseball, now that we're just about a full week into it. And also, we're going to analyze the NBA standings real quick. We're going to take a look at the first round NBA matchups if the season was to end tonight and talk about them. Also got mailbag questions, of course. And then we're going to do something very special towards the end of the show. We got a question. This was prompted by a viewer and a listener. So we're going to fulfill his request today on the show. Me and Dan are going to give our, I guess, version ones. You haven't really released or published anything, right, Dan?
No, I'm not huge into mock drafts, but
okay, yep.
We're going to get into it as by request. I mean, it is a very popular time for mock drafts, so we're going to get into it tonight.
Yep. So me and Dan are going to give our mock drafts picks 1 through 10. We're not going to break down the whole first round here tonight, but we'll do it over the next week. We'll do picks 11 through, I guess, 20, and then probably finish it out 21 through 32. Anyway, leading up to our draft show, April 26th. So do not miss that. That'll be a fun time, a long fun time, Dan, as we learned last year. I think Dan just finally said, I got to go to bed.
Yeah. I'm gonna probably have to take a nap or something, because I was hitting the snooze at the end there. It's a long night, especially when the Bears started off trading one pick for Mitch Trubisky. That set the tone.
Yeah, and it seemed like the NBA draft was unusually long too. What's taking y'all so long, But we'll be here for it. We'll be here live for it. So mock drafts going to continue through the next few weeks until me and Dan have given you our complete first round, at least version 1 of it. Like Dan said, he's not really big on mock drafts, and it's just not my expertise. But I studied enough to give it a shot. And we'll see what happens. Really, no one ever knows exactly what's going to happen, as we saw last year in the draft. So, but thanks for joining us this week on My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. I am Brandon Reed. My co-host is Dan Shaw. Just the two of us again this week. Dan, Orlando, in case we didn't really tell anybody or let the folks at home know over the last couple of weeks why you haven't seen Orlando, he has actually been taking, and I forgot the guy's name, but he has been taking an acting class in Austin, I believe. Austin or Dallas, I don't remember. But anyway, he's been taking an acting class from a pretty well-renowned acting teacher. And it runs at least through the month of April, I believe. So that's why you haven't seen Orlando on the podcast lately. So was I right on that, Dan? Austin, Dallas. But anyway, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I think the teacher is Peter Van Nostrand.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of such. Yeah, but Pennypecker.
Congrats, Orlando.
Or AJ Pennypecker. But yeah, it's a big deal for him, obviously, or he would be on the podcast because you know how much Orlando loves being on the podcast and how much fun we have all together. So that's where Orlando is. Ryan Thomas couldn't join us. Neither could DDT, Dylan Davis Trotto, all of MyFantasySportsTalk.com. But next week, Dan, lost a note here, just that quick, but Will Masasic of Steeler Fury podcast will be here. You guys have been exchanging some communique back and forth. So I said, just come on the podcast, man.
Yeah. Will actually reached out via the website, myfantasysportstalk.com. He found my draft profiles on there, and he gave me his 2 cents. Most of it was positive. He agreed with a lot of the stuff that I had, especially, I don't know if you saw the comment on Anthony Miller's draft profile. He said I hit the nail on the head when I was comping Anthony Miller to Antonio Brown. So
And you saw his pro day numbers I sent you either today or yesterday, whenever that was. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, if he's healthy, I mean, he had an issue with a foot, in the Senior Bowl. But if he's healthy, I think, he's my number 2 wide receiver in the entire draft. But Will, found my profiles and started commenting on them. So we reached out, and come to find out, he helps run Steelers Fury podcast. So check it out, and he'll be on the show next week. We'll talk probably a little bit of Pittsburgh Steelers talk, and definitely NFL draft, because he's big into it as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
There you go. Coming up next week on the show. So do not miss that, especially if you're a Steelers fans, which Steeler fans I've learned are everywhere, Dan. You run into Steelers fans everywhere. And I don't just mean that. I'm in the South here. I run into them, the Memphis area, Tennessee, here in Arkansas. They're everywhere.
Yes, that terrible towel.
Like those Buffalo fans, right? They're everywhere.
Yeah, around Buffalo they are, at least.
So the weather, we were talking just a little bit off camera just a second ago about the weather swings, which you said you were in the 50s yesterday in Buffalo. Now you got a 60-mile-an-hour wind with a snowstorm going on, with power going out all around you. So that's another thing. We may abruptly have to end this podcast because I'm not going to carry the show by myself, and Dan's power may go out. He got a massive snowstorm bearing down on him as we speak.
Yeah, it's quite windy out. So if you also hear some whistling or anything like that, it might be me, but it's probably the wind. But yeah, it's normal Buffalo weather. Our winter goes until about May, so we hope to see some sunny skies in May.
It's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. I'm not going to complain too much, but I was telling you, here in Arkansas, our weather pattern yesterday started out in the low 40s in the morning, climbed all the way up to about 75 degrees by like 6 o'clock. Then a massive storm came through and the temperature dropped back down to 40 by early morning. So just a crazy 30-degree swing twice within the period of about 24 hours. Just nuts. But we're both here for now. Hopefully the snow stays out of Dan's den or his studio there, and we get to finish and wrap this up, because I want to talk more about the myfantasysportstalk.com NBA fantasy champion. Man, this guy was just good. He was just good. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the Final Four. Would you rather do that instead, Dan?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that then. So something I guess I found out of maybe the last week, but the opinion and the feeling towards this team really got solidified over the weekend. But I guess Villanova was the best damn team in the country.
Yeah, I think we should have probably known that all year too. I mean, they barely lost any games, and they dominated in the tournament. They dominated the Big East. They had the best player in college basketball on their team. Not only that, but they were deep. They play defense. They can shoot the threes. They have one of the best coaches in the country. So really, when you look at it, it's kind of surprising. Not everybody picked them, but that's March Madness. But I'm glad to see the best team did win. I'm glad Michigan didn't, because I had them losing in the first round, and if they won the championship, that would have been pretty bad on me there.
Yep, that would not have looked great anyway. But I think Duke probably would have gave Villanova the best matchup. I had Duke winning the championship. I had them beating Villanova, and actually that was my sentiment or feeling all along, that was probably the real championship, Duke and Villanova, because I had Gonzaga and Arizona on the other side. I actually had Duke and Arizona meeting for the championship, my final bracket. So that wasn't right, obviously, but I think Duke probably could have gave Villanova the best matchup. I mean, hell, they got 4 first-round NBA draft picks. Would you agree, Dan? Although, I mean, it was a hell of a game between Duke and Kansas, and Duke just got beat. But I still think Duke would have gave Villanova a better matchup. What do you think?
Yeah, I think when you look at pure basketball talent, Duke probably had the best talent on their team, at least in their starting 5. But they were also a lot younger. Villanova was experienced, but yeah, I agree. Those two teams probably, if they matched up, that would have been the ideal matchup that you would wanted to watch and see. And just with Michigan, I mean, Michigan played a great team game. But even like Moritz Wagner, I don't think he's going to be anything special in the NBA. That team has a bunch of role players to backups. If they were even to make an NBA roster, but most of them are probably going to be playing overseas. But that speaks more to John Beilein getting them to play as a team than anything else. But Villanova was just clearly more talented.
Yep, absolutely 100%. So let's back up to Saturday, the Final Four, the day of the Final Four. And your pick went down to the aforementioned Michigan Wolverines. Dan, you picked Loyola Chicago. You thought they could do it, and they were up by 10 several different times. But I'm going to disagree with you a little bit about Moritz Wagner. Dude, I think he has a really good chance at having a great NBA game. His size, he just has skill. He can do everything, and he seems to have a very high motor, which is also a huge key to playing in the NBA. Although he did wear down, it looked like in the championship game, but he stuck it to Cameron Krutwig in Loyola Chicago. It was a game for a while. Krutwig was holding his own. And like I said, Loyola Chicago was up by 10 at multiple different occasions. It was just a swinging game. But Wagner turned out to be too much for Loyola Chicago. He finished with 24 and 15. So your pick went down. And after that, were you even interested anymore, Dan?
No, I didn't even catch the game on Saturday. I had other commitments, so I didn't even get to watch it. I was checking, score updates on my phone, and I saw Loyola Chicago was leading at halftime. And then they Michigan outscored them by 19 points in the second half. So, the Cinderella story kind of came to an end. It was tough to see. I wanted to see them kind of pull the Butler a few years ago when they had to play Duke in the championship game. I would have kind of liked to see that, but overall, it was a great story. And supposedly, your boy Mosier might not leave. He might actually stay with Illinois Chicago.
Yeah,
Chicago.
Yeah, and I think he's from that area, so this is kind of a hometown situation for him. Just plant your roots, maybe, if that's what you really want to do. I mean, there's coaches like that. I mean, look at Mark. Who's in Gonzaga? Mark Few.
Yep.
Look at Mark Few. I mean, Mark Few has just built it. He's had plenty of offers, time and time again. I don't know. There's some guys like that. But I'm telling you, me personally, I think he could write his own check to whoever is open right now, who may come open before the start of the next season, because I still think he's one of the hottest coaches. You just look at his total resume. He has one NCAA double A postseason loss on his resume, and the way he's turned around and flipped programs that were not good into winners. I think he's a hot commodity, but we'll see. He has a lot. I think. I know Krutwig is coming back. I'm not sure. You mentioned last week. I think there was only like one senior on the roster.
Custer's coming back. I know that.
Clayton Custer. So Ben Richards, maybe. I don't remember who the senior is, but there's several juniors on that team. Krutwig's a big dude. I think Krutwig reminds me of, you remember Big Country Bryant Reeves, Dan?
Yeah.
Just a big physical boy. Doesn't look like he's ever lifted a weight in his life, but he's just country strong. He's just a big guy that is skilled. Can put the ball in the hoop around the bucket and be a paint presence. So he's going to be good. And I'll be honest with you, Dan, I did not catch the next game Saturday, the Villanova Kansas game. I didn't even see it. I just wasn't really interested anymore. I've kind of I watched my one basketball game. I was keeping up with the score, but to be honest with you, at halftime, I knew it was over because of the history of Villanova. They hadn't played a single-digit game all year, and they're up by 15 at halftime. So I just wasn't interested. I was going to turn it in if the game got close, but it really never did. Villanova just stomped out Kansas. So that met us up Monday night, Villanova, Michigan. So I know you caught the game Monday night, though, right, Dan?
No, actually, I did not, and I'll tell you why. And
your basketball interest just did a nosedive. You did all the watching all year, all the draft profiles on the website, watched all the way until about the last game and a half, and boom.
Yeah, no, I chucked it in at basically the Elite Eight when I didn't have a single team left in my bracket, so that didn't help. But this is the thing I hate about the national championship game. Living on the East Coast, it starts at 9:30 p.m.
That's true, Dan. As soon as it was over and I knew the champion, the confetti field, I turned it off because I'm like, okay, it was pretty late here for a Monday night. That's why I don't understand. Why don't they do that on Saturday? Why isn't the national championship on a Saturday? Football too.
Yeah, I hate it. So that and there was an Astros game, and I was actually, in the beginning of baseball season, my interest kind of goes there. So I was actually watching the Astros. I flipped, between commercials, I would flip back and forth. But when I got to the second half and Villanova was just dominating, I knew they weren't going to be giving up a lead to a less talented offensive team, at least in Michigan. So I knew Villanova had it definitely in the second half.
So Villanova is the first team since, I believe, 08-09 North Carolina to dance through the tournament without losing a single game, or I'm sorry, without playing a single-digit game the whole tournament. They beat everybody by double digits the whole way through. First team since that 08-09 Carolina team. The previous team to do that was a Duke team in 2001, I believe. And then the year before that was Michigan State, who did it too. So two teams did it back to back in the early 2000s at the turn of the century. But then no one had done it till Carolina in 08-09. And then we go about another 10 years, either 9 or 10 seasons. And it was 08-09 or 09-10 that North Carolina did it in. So I knew it wasn't common, but I had to do a little research, Dan, to figure that out because it just didn't seem like that's something you see very often. And I just wanted to see just how good this Villanova team really is. And that doesn't happen very often. And I think you'll see it even for fewer times as we go on with the parity in college basketball, like teams like Loyola Chicago going all the way. They were a good team. That wasn't a fluke. They were a really good team. Made it all the way to the Final Four. So it's rare that you're going to walk through the tournament 6 games and win every game by double digits. So now within the last 20 years, it's happened 4 times. In the last 18 years, it's happened twice.
Yeah, I think that speaks to how good this Villanova team was. And not only that, but their side of the bracket really wasn't busted the way the other side was, where you have a 16 beating a 1, a 9 seed in the Sweet 16. You didn't see those upsets in that side of the bracket. They played Texas Tech, a 3 seed. They played Kansas, a 1 seed. So they still played legitimate teams and still beat them by double digits. So hats off to Villanova. I think they were clearly the best team. And there's no end in sight for them. Jay Wright does a great job recruiting. DiVincenzo I know is coming back, but I'm sure they have some other guys as well.
Well, speaking of DiVincenzo, 31 points in the championship game, 5 rebounds. Let me see. Something else really impressed me too. So his all-around stat line basically was just amazing for a championship game. And he came off the bench, but ended up playing as many minutes as anybody. But 10 for 15, 5 for 7 from downtown. He had 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 blocks to go along with that 31 points. That is a take over the game type of game. And who really saw that coming out of him? We talked about the balance of Villanova before the game, before the Final Four, and that's true. Let's see, Bridges had 19, did his work. You had 8 from Spellman and 9 from Brunson. So they spread it out, but who saw an amazing game like that coming out of DiVincenzo? And that's one of the best individual performances you're going to see or have seen in a national championship game in a long time. It almost seems accidentally.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what makes it so special, is you kind of see those happen out of nowhere. So hats off to him. Now that I'm thinking about it, I thought he was a lot younger. Is he a senior? Is he maybe not coming back?
He is just a sophomore. He has
sophomore.
2 years.
Okay, so he is coming. Okay, that's what I thought. Just making sure.
So that kid's only getting better.
Yeah, and you're going to see him kind of step into that light a little bit like, I don't know if you remember last year en route to North Carolina's championship, Luke May hit like a game-winning shot. He was kind of that role player on that team last year, and this year he stepped up and he was one of their go-to guys. I see that role kind of fitting with DiVincenzo next season with Villanova.
Yep. So they're going to lose a little bit. If you want to talk about maybe way too early and looking ahead to next year's seedings and rankings, they're going to lose a little bit, obviously, with Bridges and Brunson. But Jay Wright has it going on now. He's a homegrown Philadelphia kid. Grew up watching that. I think he is in his place. For life, as long as he wants to coach, and still a fairly young guy. You realize he's been there like 17 years.
Yeah, I knew it's been a while. I didn't know the exact number, but yeah, I just assume Jay Wright and Villanova. They go hand in hand.
So I've seen this a little bit this week before we wrap up the Final Four. A debate a little bit. And to me, it's not a debate. It's clear. Especially if, I guess it depends on how old you are, how much of your scope of perspective is here. But is Villanova a blue blood program, Dan?
Yeah, I would say so. Just looking back at what they did, when they won that championship in the 80s, and since I've really been following college basketball, they've always been a good team. They're always in the tournament every year. Now they're winning championships consistently. Yeah, I would definitely say so.
And I completely agree. I don't think there's any debate. Yes, they're a blue blood program. They're a basketball program. They don't play football. So they are a basketball school. And I'm glad you mentioned back in the 80s, because that was my point of reference there. When I was growing up real young, I'm talking about like maybe 5 or 6 years old. But you got to remember back then, like in the early to mid 80s, Memphis Tiger basketball was huge too. With the Andre Turner, Keith Lee, all those guys, William Bedford. Memphis basketball was really good. They made a Final Four. And it was just huge in the city. So when I grew up, that was like that was the passion to me. And that's why I grew up playing basketball, because it was just the hugest thing in the city. And when I was growing up during that time, Memphis was good, yes, on a local level, yes, even nationally. But really, the teams in the Big East were the talk of and toast of the college basketball world. With Villanova was right there, Georgetown, even St. John's. But Villanova, Georgetown, when those two would go at it, that was the cream of college basketball back then in the 80s. If you pulled out old Sports Illustrated and saw the top 25 rankings back then, and we didn't have Google back then, Dan. We didn't have ESPN.com. You had papers, but that's how you got your rankings and information, is you had to get like Sports Illustrated magazines. But if you go back and look at those from the early 80s, mid 80s, you're going to see Memphis is atop a lot of the year. Number one through a lot of those years and times and weeks. But Villanova, Georgetown, all those Big East teams are right there. So you have a tradition there. It ain't like Villanova just sprung up in the last 11, 12 years, folks. Huge tradition at Villanova. And yeah, they're absolutely a blue blood program, and they belong right there. And plus now Jay Wright being there so long has the recruits rolling in. Now he's putting players into the NBA. So they're a blue blood program, and I expect them to even reload at this point.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said, agreed. I mean, it started for me really noticing Villanova when Kyle Lowry was there, and they had a couple other guards in that backcourt that kind of just shined and put Villanova not just on the map, but like as a high seed, as a 1, 2, 3 seed in advancing in the tournament. And that's when I kind of really took notice. But obviously, you said Jay Wright's been there 17 years, so it's been a while that he's been doing this.
Yep. And they are rolling, should be right there next year, in the conversation at least. We'll see how everybody else reloads. Kansas will be there, sure, Michigan State, Duke, all your regulars. But Villanova will be there as well. And congrats to the champions of NCAA college basketball for this year, 2018. So we'll leave college basketball right there. And next we'll move on and let's talk a little MLB. Let's see what's going on in the world of MLB over the last week, the opening week since opening day of Major League Baseball, or a little bit about our fantasy baseball league as well. And then we're going to look at the NBA first round matchups if the season were to end tonight. This is my fantasy podcast from myfantasysportstalk.com. I am Brandon Reed. My co-host is Dan Schalk, and it's just us this week. No Ryan Thomas, no Orlando Torres. So we're just going to be kind of bouncing off each other. And if you don't like the way either one of us looks, or we get on your nerves somehow, then just lower the screen, because it's just us. That's all you're going to see this week. And just me and Dan. But I'll tell you what, baseball, your favorite time of the year, has kicked off, and pretty good start for your Astros. What are you, 4-1 now?
6-1, baby.
6-1. Okay, but that's the thing about baseball, man. You look at you got to look at the standings daily, because if you don't look in a couple of days, it's like, damn, 3 games have passed in 2 days. Whoa, what happened here? It's like the Flash already. I can't believe it. So, liking what you're seeing, I guess.
Oh, I'm loving what I'm seeing. This is it's a complete team. We actually, I was off work today to cover the Astros game, and I mean, we threw out a scrub lineup. Dallas Keuchel didn't last more than 5 innings, had multiple walks, over 100 pitches, didn't look good at all. But we pulled out a win, and that speaks to the talent on this team, of how deep that they are. And how that pitching staff and their bullpen is much improved this year. So I'm excited what I'm seeing. It's only a weekend, so it's a long season. A lot can happen, but they're clearly locked in. There's no World Series hangover, where you can't really say the same right now for the Dodgers, who are struggling mightily to start the year. Kershaw going 0-2 was very surprising.
So, sticking on your Astros real quick, just out of my personal interest, it's something I haven't got a chance to talk to you about, is Yuli Gurriel. What's going on? When will he be back, and will he be productive for me?
Yeah, he should be back around April 13th. He had the first 5-game suspension for his racial gesture in last year's World Series. Now he's on a rehab assignment from the thumb surgery, so he's expected back next week, and he's going to be put right back into the starting lineup. He'll be the everyday first baseman, the occasional day off. But yeah, I expect him to come back and be productive. You're looking at 280 to 300 hitter, 20 to 25 home runs, 70 to 80 RBI. So definitely keep him in the lineup, and don't drop him on your roster.
Oh, I would not drop him. No,
I'll pick him up. So.
Oh, I know you will. And so, kind of sticking with our fantasy baseball team real quick, Dan, your name is New Breed Wishes He Was Me. And of course, I go by New Breeds, pretty much everything, social media, Xbox, whatever, all my fantasy names. So when our fantasy draft was taking place, I honestly thought you had the first pick, but I thought it was me. I'm thinking, damn, I got the first and 6th pick. I don't know what happened here, but yeah, because I forgot that. So you actually had the first pick, but I was all lined up, and I'm serious here. It took me a minute to figure that out. I'm thinking, because I'm not paying a big attention. I'm saying New Breeds, plus you're talking about little tabs there. And I thought I had the first pick for a long time there. I'm talking about 10 minutes or so when I logged in. So I'm lining up my first pick, and I'm thinking I'm taking Jose Altuve, because even if I don't really want him, which I don't know why I wouldn't want him, but even if I don't, Dan would give me the house for Jose Altuve. Yeah, but anyway, you had it, and that got a little bit to do with why I took Yuli Gurriel. But I know he's actually good too, and should have a chance. So I was looking to see actually what round I took him in. I was thinking it was around 5th, 6th. Does that sound right?
No, I think you may have taken him a little bit later than that. At least that would
9, 10.
Yeah, that would sound about right.
Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, I got him real late. Okay, We're not talking about impact. Yeah. 24th round. Okay, my bad. You know what? I'm thinking about this other guy here. I was thinking about this other guy right now who's on DL. Nelson Cruz, I took in the 5th round. Did you see the way he got hurt? I sent that out today. In case I know you probably know, but Nelson Cruz hit a home run. He's coming around the bases, going back into the dugout, and slips on the damn steps and twists and sprains an ankle. Come on, man. See, that's my kind of luck in fantasy. How does that happen? Dude just hit a home run and slips down the steps going back into the dugout. Seriously?
Yeah. I'm not. I mean, nobody which is injured. I'm glad it's not serious. But as an Astros fan and the Mariners into my division, I'm okay with it.
I'm sure you are, but it's stupid, right? Come on, man.
Yeah,
man. So something else early in the MLB season, Dan, is the weather. There's been several postponements. Opening day, I believe it was Washington got snowed out. We saw just this Monday, the Yankees home opener got snowed out. And mean, you were right there because I know you saw it, but just kind of a real shout out, I guess, or awareness to the fact that Mike Greenberg, and Michelle Beadle and Jalen Rose's new show, Get Up, premiered on ESPN this week, debuted on ESPN week this week, and they got their studio set up kind of like a morning show with the glass behind them looking out over New York. And it was a blizzard, Dan. It wasn't snowing. It was a freaking can't see 2 feet in front of your face blizzard.
Yeah, 5.5 inches of snow, I think, was what fell at the ballpark. So obviously it got snowed out. It's what we deal with, and it's frustrating too because you're so juiced for the start of the season. You know, you're getting your fantasy lineups all set up, and then postponement. So add on top of it, this was the earliest start of Major League Baseball in history. I mean, so that's obviously not going to do good, especially when you schedule the early season games up north in the Northeast and in places like that. I mean, it's just to be expected. So I don't know if there's a way to rearrange the schedule to make them start, you know, the northern or northeast teams start on the road to start the year so we can get some actual games. But it's to be expected. It's baseball. It sucks, but something we got to deal with.
Yeah, I think it was just the timing of the 1st of April being on a Sunday, and you want to kind of kick off Major League Baseball on a day other than Sunday to get it going. So you want to they've done this over the last few years, kind of leaned into the season before, a hard opening day for everybody, So maybe they do start out next year if they want to do that. If it happens again, kind of the calendar falls like that, to play some West Coast games, or start out at least where the temperatures or weather shouldn't be inclement either anyway, because we're talking about April. But you mentioned the weather, earliest start in baseball, and I would just like to point out something to you, Dan, that I noticed, and I just don't know if you've seen any numbers or any stats, or even if it's a big deal at all right now, but MLB attendance early on in the first week of the season. And I know I'm maybe talking crazy. It's just the first week of the season, and it is April, even March in a lot of the cases. I think the first 3 days or so of the season was technically in March, but attendance doesn't look to be very good visually on TV from a lot of these games and a lot of these highlights I'm seeing. So are you seeing that, Dan? Is it a real thing? Is it just the timing, the season, or that's not really the case at all, and I don't know what I'm looking at?
No, I mean, I've noticed it a little bit. I think a lot of it, well, not a lot, but some of it has to do with weather. On some of those games, like I watched the Yankees home opener in the makeup against the Rays, and I mean, there were a lot of empty seats there. You wouldn't expect to see that at a Yankees opening day, but it's a Tuesday in the afternoon, with rain falling, so I think that has an impact. The Miami Marlins as a team have an impact. I mean, their fans hate them. They don't even show up to games on purpose now.
That's not a baseball crowd. I mean, that franchise may end up moving somewhat in the near future. I don't know. They've won World Series, but that's just not a baseball atmosphere, man. I know there's a lot of Cuban presence, but as far as community and economy, you just basically got a lot of older people, retired people there that are just not going to attend baseball games on the regular.
And they constantly sell off their stars, so the fan base is definitely soured on the entire organization. So they failed to get 10,000 in their home opener, which is definitely surprising. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with early season. A lot of it is during day games, so that has an impact. In baseball attendance, you don't really start to see the sellouts until the rosters the standings are kind of set. Playoff pushes, playoff races, pennant titles, or special days like 4th of July, Memorial Day, things like that. So I'm not too concerned, but
a little premature, right? I mean, you're talking about late March, early April, but just something I noticed. But I do know that I was reading something today that baseball attendance actually league-wide last year actually dipped below 73 million for the first time since 2010. So last year wasn't the heaviest as far as attendance in baseball goes. So you think that trend continues this year? Or, I mean, was that an anomaly? Or, I mean, what's going on?
No, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. The ticket prices themselves. I mean, I'm going to a couple Astros Indians games in May, and to go to 2 games in decent seats, $500 $500 for 4 total tickets of 2 games. So,
and parking, how much?
Well, hopefully no parking, because we actually stay at a hotel and walk to the stadium. So
that's the way
we get lucky that way.
Or, I mean, if anything else, at least Uber it or something, because you and Orlando actually got to go to the championship game Monday night in San Antonio, and he was talking about the parking. He had to pay $100 for parking just to park. And then you were talking about the World Series last year. So I'm like, dude, y'all need Uber. I mean, I'm just Ubering, and I am not paying that much to park. That is ridiculous. Just to park my car here for 2 hours, you're going to charge me $100+? No, that is ridiculous. You know how much money that adds up to?
Quite a bit, more than I'll ever probably see. So, it's tough. The prices are going, and not only that, but MLB. If you're an MLB fan, a baseball fan, you have the At Bat app. You're probably subscribed to MLB.TV, extra innings package. I love it. I can watch every game on every device, on my TV and my phone and my iPad simultaneously, 3 different games. So,
I think that'll have a lot to do with sports all across the board, attendance dipping a little bit. And it may actually end up helping the consumer of tickets, I think, because ticket prices may eventually have to lower. But now with the technology of everything, the league passes and all that, it's so much better watching a game, honestly, if you're really interested in the outcome and want to watch the game and not just be there, in the ballpark or whatever, to watch it at home on TV, or it's much cheaper.
Yeah, definitely. And that's honestly what I do. I find myself actually noticing things more when I'm watching a game on TV sometimes than when I'm actually at the game.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, with the replay and everything like that. Yep. And it's always comfortable. Well, I guess yeah. You can't really throw many outside cook-offs though, can you, Dan? At least till probably June, because it's still snowing until then. But anyway, you control your environment. You don't have to sit out in the snow. But I don't know. There's something to be said about being at a game in person too. But I'm always I'll just kind of save my money for the big events. It's got to be a big game for me. Other than going to like AutoZone Park in Memphis to see the Redbirds play, because that's just hanging out, drinking beer at a ballpark. That's just fun. I really don't care who wins the game at all. I don't even know who's playing. But as far as I'm gonna buy a ticket, a serious ticket price, it has to be a meaningful game, like a Grizzlies playoff game, Grizzlies big game, a big college basketball game, something like that. Before I'll save my money for that. Then I would like being there, just to say I was there, like World Series. But it's just a regular season game, and I'm probably going to watch it from home, to be honest with you. So, but anyway, wrap up baseball here. Giancarlo Stanton has had a unusual, interesting last few days or so. So Yankees started out the season on the road, got snowed out on Monday. So they came back the next day for their home debut. Giancarlo Stanton went 0 for 5 in his home debut, got booed off the field. Then he hit a home run today, and they're fine. Everything's good. Cheers and jeers.
0 for 5, 5 Ks. You know what that's called, Brandon?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't.
So let me tell you, it's 0 for 4 with 4 Ks is a golden sombrero. Okay. 0 for 5 with 5 Ks is a platinum sombrero. So
I've heard of golden sombrero, but I've never heard of platinum sombrero. I didn't even think of that.
Doesn't even happen that often.
You think? Yeah. Wow. Okay. So platinum him and his platinum sombrero were booed straight out of the park. On Tuesday, I guess. And then today he had a home run, and they're back in his good graces. But I mean, damn, he is leading the majors in homers, right? He's got 4.
Yeah, that's what the Yankees are banking on: home runs and strikeouts. So they just have to hope that their pitching staff can hold up, because they're going to hit a lot of bombs, but they're going to strike out a lot too. So it's kind of live or die by that home run. But they have enough hitters in their lineup that they can go yard at any time.
So here's just a couple of other notes that I found today. I want to get your comments on them. Dan, the Red Sox, Thomas Takes Red Sox here, 5-1, all on the road. Pirates are 4-0, only team undefeated left in the majors right now. I know it's just 4-0, but that's a pretty good start. And then the other thing I noticed is everybody has a win. Everyone in Major League Baseball has a win right now. Again, that's pretty good for an early start. Just played 4 or 5, maybe 6, 7 games, but everybody has a win.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of speaks to that, and to the Red Sox inflated record. I mean, when you play the Rays and Marlins, two of the probably the worst teams in Major League Baseball, you should have a good record. So, temper your expectations for them. The Yankees are gonna own that division. But yeah, it's a good start. Always competitive teams. Even the bad ones are going to be able to squeak out wins at times. So that's why I love it. I love it, especially the early part. You see those bad teams kind of play above their skill level for a little bit before they come back down to earth.
But I might be mistaken here, but are the Pirates supposed to be any good this year?
No, they're terrible.
Yeah.
But they played the Tigers, who are just as bad, if not worse. So the early season matchups kind of are swayed a little bit because good teams play good teams, bad teams play bad teams, good teams play bad teams. So these first few matchups, you can come out of the box swinging if you're playing some crappy teams to start.
Yep, long way to go. And hopefully the rest of the league catches up to you in fantasy baseball, Dan, at least a little bit. You need to stop doing this.
No, I will not stop. I am probably not going to lose a week all year. This is my goal. Let's put it out on the podcast. I'm going to go undefeated in fantasy baseball, which I've never seen done before, but I'm not going to lose. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned now because I know you are pretty mad about losing that basketball championship, which you were the 1 seed and you did dominate all year long. But I told you, I've been telling you for a year and a half, that don't mean nothing. And you see what I mean now. Just don't mean nothing. Because I did the same thing last year, our first year. I mean, I was good and dominating all year long, but when it came down to it, it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. So be on the lookout. And a lot of bragging rights this year. You realize that, Dan? Why didn't Ryan join the league? Because we got you and myself. We got Orlando Torres to join the league. First time ever. He's the baseball virgin. And Nick and Judy Pertins, who love talking the trash, which we got that impression early on in the draft board. Mm-hmm. And they listen to the show because they got Shohei Ohtani, who they're trying to unload, which we'll talk about that later. But going to be a lot of bragging rights in the league this year. If you can pull that off, or whoever pulls that off.
Yeah, I will, and I will brag. Brian Thomas, he's a little weird. I think the listeners of the show probably know that. But I have a dynasty league that he joined. He complained about joining a second or third league, so I didn't even want to bother with the annoyance that is Thomas Take at times for inviting him in another league. So I opened it up to the fans, and I'm glad that Nick and Judy came in instead of the Thomas Take.
Yep. They're going to be a great addition to our podcast because it gives us just another level of things to discuss on the podcast. And it's going to be fun. But that's baseball now. We're about 6 days in. A long, long time to go. We'll see what happens. So let's talk about the NBA. If the NBA season were to end today, what do the playoff matchups look like? And what do we think about that? So broke it down earlier, Dan. As of today, before any games, Wednesday, April 4th. So Houston would get the 1 seed. They would play New Orleans. Golden State would get the 2 seed. They would play Minnesota. Portland, the 3. They would play the 6 seed Oklahoma City. And the 4 and 5 would be Utah and San Antonio, with Utah getting that 4. So out west, if that was the case, just what do you think? What sticks out to you? How do you see that breaking down? Is there any series that you would look forward to more than the other?
Yeah, the Timberwolves will beat the Warriors in the first round, I think. If Steph Curry doesn't play, Jimmy Butler comes back, I think you can see the Timberwolves sneak that upset.
Does Jimmy Butler have a chance at coming back?
Yeah, I think I saw something earlier that said he is close to rejoining the team. It was actually on ESPN. It says he's nearing return from his knee injury, so he is expected to be back. He's a full participant in the workout, so in their latest workout. So that's good news for me. And if he can play and he's healthy and Steph Curry is out, I like the way they can kind of match up, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's a longer series, 6-7 games. I might be a little haterade going on by saying the Warriors would lose, but I can see it happening. Other than that, I don't see any other upsets really in the first round, other than that maybe that 4-5 matchup. But I don't see the Thunder beating the Trailblazers, and the Pelicans aren't going to be beating the Rockets.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily a haterade, Dan, because if you're telling me Jimmy Butler's coming back and he's healthy enough to play at least 85% and Steph Curry is out, then that changes that whole series. First of all, let's just say we don't even know that's going to be for the sure matchups. That's just if the season ended today. That bottom of that West, though, is still kind of up in the air.
They're all tied. Like, a lot of them have the same records. I think.
Denver, New Orleans, Minnesota, pretty much Oklahoma City and San Antonio. No one is solidified. Even the Clippers have a chance at this moment. So, but anyway, that would be interesting if that was the matchup and that was the case. If Steph Curry came back, though, and Jimmy Butler did not, then I'd say the exact opposite. I'd say that's a cakewalk. I would say that's actually easier than the Houston-New Orleans first-round series, because at least New Orleans has that big guy, Anthony Davis, that can dominate. They got several guards, and I don't know. That's tough to deal with in a first-round match. We're talking about a 1-8 matchup. I think that's pretty tough. New Orleans is 4th in the league in scoring. They're not any kind of cakewalk. And then, like I said, you have that big dominant superstar. It's just hard to deal with. And Houston could not deal with Anthony Davis. Clint Capella is not going to be able to deal with Anthony Davis. So I don't know. Maybe if E'Twaun Moore, someone could help block down James Harden. They missed some threes. Maybe New Orleans could steal a game or so. I'm not going to predict the upset, but I just think that would be a harder matchup than Golden State versus Minnesota. But the way I saw that, though, Dan, I thought that was a little bit easier of a matchup because I'm just going to say, because Steph Curry's not playing in the first round. We already know that. They've already said that. So, and I didn't anticipate Jimmy Butler playing at all. So I'm saying without Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler, then that Golden State matchup is easier for Minnesota than the Houston matchup is with New Orleans, I feel. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to agree with you. I can see that. Good thing. I mean, Steph Curry's a big baby, so he's not going to be back, as already talked about. But yeah, I mean, New Orleans is they're a dangerous 8th seed now. I mean, I think Houston is kind of a class above this season, but I wouldn't sleepwalk with them. I would expect them to at least get 1, if not 2 games in that series either way.
Very possible. I believe they stole 1 from Houston this year, but that was probably with DeMarcus Cousins. Maybe I'll mix up. Maybe they didn't beat them, but I thought there was 1 loss on Houston's schedule this year from New Orleans, but that probably was with DeMarcus Cousins. But I mean, they're just as dangerous with Anthony Davis to someone who doesn't have an interior post presence like Houston does. Really not. Clint Capella is just not that person. The other matchup, though, I don't really care about Utah. If it's Utah San Antonio, I'm not really intrigued with that matchup at all. I think San Antonio is just hanging in there. I don't even know how San Antonio is hanging in this playoff. Sorry, Orlando, but I don't even know how they're staying in the conversation, much less being a 5 seed. And Utah is just not a sexy team to me. I just don't care. I just really don't care. But the Portland OKC matchup could be very interesting. Just for the fact because you got Dirty Dame and Russ Westbrook. That could be a hell of a showdown. Could be some fireworks there. And I know you're going to disagree, Dan, but I think OKC is that dangerous team once we get into the playoffs with that trio of guys with Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and Carmelo Anthony. If he fits in a role good and he gets on a hot streak, they could be dangerous. They could very easily pull an upset over Portland if that was the 4-5 matchup.
If the only way that would happen is if
3-6. I'm sorry, 3-6.
But if Billy Donovan is starting to catch on, he's starting to bench Carmelo Anthony, especially late in games.
That's good.
So as long as he continues to do that, then yeah, I would give the Thunder a chance.
That's when they took off, right, Dan? They started the season out horribly, and he went to a bench role, and it's like, vroom, they shot up into the playoff standings.
Yeah, and I don't think he's played in the fourth quarter. And it was either the last game or the game before that, but they're not even putting him on the floor in the fourth. So that's the smart thing to do. And I mean, Carmelo he's not anything special anymore. So I don't think he's part of that equation if the Thunder are to advance. It's Russ Westbrook and Paul George, and that's basically it. Maybe Steven Adams a little bit.
Yeah. Steven Adams is pretty tough. I think he's kind of underrated in the NBA. He's just a tough, gritty guy, and he's got some skill around the basket. Can catch the lobs. So that I would not be surprised if that was the 3-6 matchup. I would not be surprised if OKC pulls off that upset at all. It's just Damian Lillard has just been on fire lately. CJ McCollum can just go off too, like he did against the Grizzlies last week. So that would be interesting if that was the matchup. But let's move on and talk about the East. What the East would look like right now is Toronto is the 1, Milwaukee the 8, Boston would be the 2, with Washington being the 7. The 3 seed would be Cleveland, with Miami being the 6 seed. And then the 4 or 5 matchup is Philadelphia and Indiana. So right away to me, the thing that stuck out to me, Dan, was Cleveland versus Miami in the first round would be hot, especially now that Dwayne Wade, although I know he's not playing as many minutes, not as much of a pivotal role, but he still can ball, and he's back in Miami. LeBron going back to Miami could be such a hot contest, and Miami just beat Cleveland by 20 last week.
Yeah, it's definitely an intriguing matchup. I actually, one of my best friends is a Heat fan, and I was talking to him about this on Saturday and, their possible matchups, because they're probably going to play Toronto, Boston, or Cleveland. And I asked them, out of those 3, who do you want to face the most, or who would you be most comfortable? He didn't like any of the options, obviously, but he would rather have Boston out of all of those 3. And I was kind of shocked by that. But his reasoning is LeBron is going to be able to take over, and he can just take away the Heat and beat them basically himself. And then he's still sold on Lowry and DeRozan being a force like they are in the regular season. He thinks they can actually do that in the playoffs. I was kind of surprised by that.
Valanciunas, I mean, they're solid. They're not to be overlooked.
Yeah, and so he liked Boston with Kyrie Irving, dealing with that knee procedure, might not be healthy or playing or 100%. So that was the matchup that he wanted to see. My thought process is Toronto. I know they had a great regular season, but they've had great regular seasons the last few years, and Lowry and DeRozan are just different players in the playoffs. So I think they're the most susceptible out of those 3 teams to lose earlier, rather than getting to the Eastern Conference Finals.
See, I'm kind of with him. I'm looking at Boston. If you're telling me Kyrie's not going to play, I think they are susceptible. You're telling me Terry Rozier is going to lead that team through the playoffs? I know they got some great young players in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Al Horford, and I love the addition of Greg Monroe, but none of those guys are the type of guys that say, I'm going to put you on my back and I'm going to guide you through the playoffs. I don't see that. And then now that John Wall is back, that would be the first round matchup as of now. That's what we're talking about. Boston versus Washington. John Wall, Bradley Beal, Otto Porter, Gortat, one of the Morris guy. I don't know. John Wall is that kind of player that says, I'm putting the team on my back. I'm a superstar, and I'm going to guide you through the playoffs. That scares me. That really scares me if I'm Boston.
Yeah, honestly, if you look at all the East matchups, you can make a case for every single lower seed beating a higher seed. Like I can tell you, the Bucks can beat the Raptors. The Greek Freak can go off, and Jabari Parker's been playing good lately. So I mean, they have some players too. They're one of the most dangerous 8 seeds that I remember in the East in quite some time. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they take it. I wouldn't be surprised if you tell me the 76ers are in the Eastern Conference Finals this year, because I think they're talented enough. Obviously, the Embiid injury worries me a little bit, but Ben Simmons, man, I mean, I think his last 4 games, he's averaging like 24 points and 15 assists a game. He's just been going off. Not enough to win me a championship.
They're going to have a decision to make, and I agree with you. That is a very dangerous 4 seed that I really like that could potentially, with a healthy squad, could come out of the East. But they're going to have a decision to make, because I'm telling you, Markelle Fultz looks like he's going to be okay. Markelle Fultz is going to be a pretty good baller. But what decision are they going to make to relinquish the point guard duties off of Ben Simmons next year and give it to Markelle Fultz? Because I think they're going to be okay with that combo. But you got to work it out and figure it out, because Markelle Fultz is back. He did come back, Dan, and he's had some flashes up and down, trying to work him back slowly. But I think he's going to work through the shooting issues, and he's going to be a factor for that team.
Yeah, I mean, he was the number 1 pick for a reason. So if he can get healthy, and if they can give him some minutes in the postseason, I think that's only going to help his development and experience. And they're a dangerous squad. I definitely have them advancing. I don't think Indiana, I mean, they've had a great year with Oladipo and some of their other parts, but I don't think they stand any match to the 76ers, especially if the 76ers have home court. I like them a lot to advance.
And they're the team that's kind of forgotten about, but I like Indiana a lot. And if you go back to our preseason predictions, I believe I'm one of the only people that had Indiana even in the playoffs. I mean, the pieces were going to come together. I just thought they were going to be a solid team with getting the acquisition of Sabonis and Oladipo, two really good young players, and I thought they were going to have the pieces to be a solid team, and they're right there in the thick of it. But yeah, they're kind of forgotten team. There's still a lot to determine here, but. Washington could be the one playing Toronto. So let me ask you that. So you're not so high on Toronto. Do you think Washington would be a very likely upset as an 8-1 matchup versus Toronto?
Yeah, I can definitely see it as long as John Wall is healthy. I mean, right now they're slated to play the Bucks. I would say that series is at least going 6. And that's the Bucks, and I value the Wizards a little bit higher than that. So for sure.
Well, there you go. It's fun to talk about. Just about 5 games left for most teams in the NBA. And so we'll know for sure a little bit more next week of how these seedings are going to look. But we're almost there. We're almost to the NBA playoffs. And I can't wait. Can't wait to see what the matchups are and who looks like they have the best shot and who's actually going to be healthy and back playing again by that time. A lot of superstars out right now. A lot of superstars out, which could impact. And a lot of superstars have just come back recently from injury. So there's a lot to determine there in the NBA and the NBA playoffs. Doesn't look like it's just going to be an Oklahoma State walkover at this particular point, and who knows what's really going on in the East and who's going to win it. So we'll find out though. But next, we're going to open up that big old mail bag of questions and reach our hand in, pull a few out, and answer them. This is My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. I am Brandon Reed. My partner is Dan Schalk. You're still here, Dan.
I am. It's actually not even – it's like it almost stopped a little bit. I'm sure if I went outside, I would still freeze my extremities off.
Tookus.
What? Hocus pocus?
Tookus. You'd freeze your tookus off.
Tookus. Yeah, that's – what is that, an Arkansas thing?
You've never heard that? Tookus. You'll freeze your little tookus off. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I will. What do you guys not wear pants when you go outside?
No.
I mean, I have pants on.
You can still freeze your tookus off.
Yeah. I mean, that's not the part of me that gets cold when I go outside. More my lack of hair on my head that makes an impact. So it just starts freezing up there.
96.8% of your body heat escapes through your head.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, weren't you Dr. New Breed a couple of weeks ago too? Spitting out this information. Yeah.
I keep my PhD. My PhD is always here. It's just, I'll let a little bit. Sometimes I show my plaque and sometimes I don't. Yeah.
PhD from WebMD. Got it.
Okay. So the mailbag questions this week. So let's just start. We got some baseball. Actually, we got some baseball questions really just referring to one guy. We're about to break down Shohei Ohtani quite a bit right here. And the first one comes from Neil Combs. So Shohei Ohtani looks okay to start the year. A guy in my league must hate him because he's offering me every trade in their brother to get rid of him. Here are the 2 best moves to me. Should I take them? Ohtani for Zach Godley and James McCann. My current catcher, by the way, is Brian McCann. Or Ohtani for Smoke Italian. Thanks, guys. Neil Combs. So let me go real quick before you actually break it down here. But it's funny that we have kind of the same issues in our league, which we'll get to a little bit further in our next question, Dan. We got somebody who's trying to basically unload Shohei Ohtani. For whatever reason, it seems like Nick Pertins, who we'll hear from next, wants to just get rid of this guy and is offering all kinds of trades.
Yeah, well, to preface, to get rid of, I don't think so. I think he's trying to hose people with his trade.
But he's not trying to keep him. He's
no,
not.
Yeah, oh yeah. And I think I'm dealing with this in multiple leagues actually with Ohtani. I think a lot of Ohtani owners overdrafted based on his name. He struggled a little bit to start, although back-to-back days now with a home run. So I think he's starting to come around. But they overdrafted him. They were trying to sell high before a lot of games came out. And if he was going to slump really bad, you would want to get as much as you could for him. So I think you saw, a lot of owners' mindsets leading up to the draft to take him so early. I think he went in the 6th or 7th round in our draft. And you see him trying to flip Ohtani to our own New Breeds for what, your second or 3rd round pick in Noah Syndergaard. So, they're trying, but it's not working. But to Ohtani's credit, he's looking pretty solid now. He's warming up at the plate, and his first start really wasn't too bad either.
And I'll tell you right now, it's just too early for me to tell. I'm not the baseball expert by any means, but I do know I got Justin Smoke, and he is leading the league in fantasy points right now, Dan. I don't know how I got that lucky, but so that makes the question a little bit more interesting. It may sway it because in case you don't play fantasy baseball or you didn't really know, Justin Smoke is leading the league in, I guess, production, you could say.
Yeah, I think he had a multi-home run game, 8 RBIs in one contest, so that skewed a little bit. But yeah, I mean, he's a power hitter, and he can go deep quite often. He'll give you the strikeouts, but as long as he's hitting home runs, you really could care less. What else he's doing at his other at bats, as long as he gets to 1 a night, and he's been almost averaging that now. So he's a solid player. He's limited upside, but his power numbers are extreme.
So let's talk about the actual pitchers in this particular trade scenario, Dan. Godley and Talion. But to me, I'm not real familiar with either one of these guys. I know you would be a lot more familiar with them, but to me, just name recognition and position, pitching, starter role, I don't know. I just think it's way too early to tell because both these guys had really good first starts, but neither one of these guys are the type of guys whose names or draft positions stick out to me like, yeah, this guy is a must hang on to. This is kind of too early where I want to let this play out a few games before I pull the trigger and attach them to a trade for Ohtani.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually really, really tough this early because Godley has the potential to be the ace of that Diamondback staff. And when I'm saying that, I mean, I think he has the potential to be better than Robbie Ray, to be better than Zach Greinke this season. And he can be that ace. And you saw that he shut down the Dodgers the other night, held them to 1 run in 7 innings. So he has that capability. Taillon, I'm a former owner of his. I had him last year. He actually had cancer last year, so he missed a lot of time. But he's come back. He's the future ace of that Pittsburgh staff. So the way you have to look at this, obviously, I would hope this is a redraft league. If it's like a dynasty league, that makes it even more difficult because those arms, as part of it, are going to become more valuable over the next few years. But this season, their upside is only so high. It's tough with Jameson Taillon because the Pittsburgh team is going to be bad, so his wins aren't going to be there. But you have the better position player and Smoke tagged along with them. So if I'm looking at this move in particular is Ohtani for Godley and James McCann, you can just toss James McCann out the window because he's garbage. He's not going to do anything for you. Although your current catcher, Brian McCann, really isn't that much better.
Are they brothers?
No, they are not.
No relation?
No, I don't believe so. But they're both bad at baseball this year. So,
well, I actually picked up one of them as my catcher. I believe it was James for 1 day. Then I recently dropped him for Ian Coletta, I believe. Is that his name?
Ionetta.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, that's a better move. Good move there. Hey, nice. But with this one, it's basically an Ohtani for Godley straight up. And I would actually probably lean towards Ohtani for this year, mainly because he'll give you that pitching and hitting. So I would make that move, but I wouldn't get rid of Smoke and Taillon. So, yeah, I would take that move.
We also don't really know about Ohtani yet. Like you said, he said had back-to-back home run games, but as far as pitching goes, where all his numbers going to come from, and we had this debate earlier in the season where how is this going to work with this dude batting every day? But, well, in our ESPN league, if he's pitching, you don't get his batting starts if you choose to start him as a pitcher, which you should do because that's where all the points come from. But you don't get his batting stats along with his pitching stats if he even bats and hits in the same day. But then you get started in the rest of the time. But he's not even really getting at bats every day right now, is he, Dan?
I mean, he's the regular DH, I would say. I mean, he's had a day or two off already, but I mean, he's probably going to be their everyday DH, I would think, moving forward, especially if he's hitting home runs.
So if they're playing the National League team, though, he's not, unless he's pitching, he's not going to have any impact or play at all.
I don't think they have any plans to put him in the outfield this year.
Yeah. So that's tough. I mean, so what do you say ultimately? Do this deal, or if you're an Ohtani owner, I mean, was there enough there in this particular deal to do it or not?
Yeah, I mean, you got to have faith in Ohtani to make that deal.
I guess what I'm saying, are you seeking him out? Because Neil doesn't have Ohtani.
Yeah, so he would be giving up Godley and McCann, right?
Yeah. So would you even seek Ohtani out, or are you like, I'm not really interested right now?
I mean, it is intriguing. I would probably make that move. I would be a little on the risky side and say yes, accept it, take Ohtani for Godley, and look forward to it. But Godley, I mean, you're giving up a solid pitcher in Godley, so you got to be knowing or have confidence in Ohtani to make that move.
So let's talk about this a little bit further from our guy, Nick Pertins. And I don't know, did you notice this, Dan? This question is a lot shorter this week. I guess he saw the podcast last week. He was like, oh, man, I can't dog these guys out every single week. So little question. Hey, guys, just a quick note. Dan, how's it feel? But I love this question. I
almost didn't want to put it in. But I'm not going to dog our boy Nick like that. I mean, I think he's going to feel bad enough. He probably already does because he listened to the beginning of the show. So he knows what's about to come. Give me Ohtani for this.
Yeah. So here's the question as it reads. And we're going to backtrack a little bit. You'll get it in a second. Dan, how's it feel to take home another championship? How's it feel, Dan?
It feels good. Yeah.
Brandon must be pissed. That's why he isn't accepting any of my trades. Tell me, what is a good move to take for Ohtani? From Nick Perton. So we're expanded even further here, Dan. We're talking about Ohtani, but interesting story about that championship Dan won, Nick. It didn't happen. I don't know when you wrote this question, but it was funny. Of course, Nick wouldn't know. They're not in our basketball league, so Nick wouldn't know. But Daniel won, all right. Daniel Kalura. Shout out, Daniel. New York Storm. And that's what shut down the Yankees Park Monday, in case you didn't know. The New York Storm blew through. And no games Monday. We're celebrating. It was the parade for Daniel Kalura for winning the MyFantasySportsTalk.com Fantasy Basketball League. Okay. Maybe the last mention at this show. I don't know. We'll see. Depends on how I feel. But anyway, okay. So this is what I'll do, Nick. I was piecing this together. I even ran this by Dan. This is something along the lines of what I'm willing to do for you, Nick. If you're trying to unload Ohtani, and I'm intrigued. I think most people would be intrigued. But my ballpark right now, this early in the season, because you started offering trades before one game was played, Nick. I don't know anything. I still don't know anything. We're 5-6 days into the season. So at this point, the only thing I'm willing to do for you right now is a trade along these lines. I'll give you two guys for Ohtani. One would be Danny Duffy, pretty good starting pitcher. And I'll add in a player, say Jay Bruce. Jay Bruce could have, add some value to you there. So you're getting two pieces for one. You're just not going to get my ace for a guy who I don't know what the hell he's going to be. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, Dan. So you thought that deal kind of, favored me probably a little bit right there. But what are you looking at as far as trades for Ohtani? Are you willing to trade an ace straight up for Ohtani? Or is it going to be more like a third position starter, third guy in the rotation, and maybe an add-in piece for Ohtani, something kind of like what I just presented to Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's tough for me to give up an ace like Syndergaard for Ohtani. I would never do that. Sorry, Nick. You're getting a little crazy there. And even now, it looks even worse for Nick because he had offered me a deal earlier before any game was played. I think it was Ohtani and I would give up Jose Berrios and Aaron Nola or something like that.
Jose Berrios, who just had 80 points the other night.
I know. Exactly. So, I mean, Nick, we know what you're doing. We know you're trying to get your best foot forward, but you're not going to be able to get an ace like that for Ohtani until he continues to show that he is an ace or a power hitter like that. So I think a solid starter, yeah, maybe a Danny Duffy. Just looking at my team, I have Johnny Cueto out there who threw a one hitter in his last start. So maybe a package like a Cueto and another guy like, I don't know, like a Yohan Moncada or something like that. But you're not going to get a true number one ace, I wouldn't think, straight up for Ohtani.
Well, that's the thing, because you're asking guys like myself to give up their proven veteran aces like Syndergaard for a rookie potential ace. It's just not going to happen. I don't think he's going to provide that much with his bat on every given night to make him that type of must-have dual threat guy. He could potentially be that, but I'm not about to give that up right now. It's just too early in the season for anyone to know that. But you know, I don't even really, I'm not going to give Nick and Judy much crap about even reaching for him in the 7th, because it could ultimately be a steal, Dan, if they just hang on to him.
Yeah, who knows if they will? They probably will, because they keep sending ridiculous trades. But yeah, I mean, he is still a pretty good player, and he's getting them a lot of points. You know, his start was worth over 20, and you know, any games that you hit home runs, you're at least getting 6. So he's getting solid point production. So I don't think Nick and Judy are complaining too much in their matchup with having him on the roster.
If you would have acquired him at any point, let's just say round 7, 8, 9, 10, you know, Nick and Judy got him at 7. Let's just say you invested that much in him, 7, 8, 9, 10 at this particular point, or even trying to move him, or do you want to play this thing out and see what you got?
Yeah, I mean, I actually kind of want. I would want him. I would want to keep him. No, you see what they're doing with their proposals. They're trying to step up. So I get that. That makes sense.
Yeah,
but yeah, I like
with the Syndergaard trade, they would have been trading me basically their 7th for, I think, my 3rd.
Yeah, so I mean, I like it, but yeah, I'm not complaining with Ohtani on my roster. He's putting up points on the board, and then that's ultimately what you want every night.
Yep. So a lot of Shohei Ohtani right there, but he has a history on this podcast, Dan. You remember that? You told me about this prospect a long time ago. This dual threat guy could revolutionize baseball, and I wrote his name down on the podcast, and that was months and months ago. And now here we are talking about him.
Yeah, pretty cool. You learn things here. My fantasy podcast.
You definitely do. And I think that's why Nick and Judy reached for him as 7th to begin with, because they heard about him on the podcast months and months. When was that? Probably last April, or it was a long time ago.
No.
All right, so let's move on and talk a little NFL from the mailbag. This one comes from Mike Evans up there in Tampa. Salute. How you doing up there in Tampa Bay? Mike? No. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. This Mike Evans guy is just a 32-year-old white mechanic. Oh. Wrong guy. Okay. Damn, I was excited for a second there, Dan. Mike Evans. Okay. No. Not Mike Evans, guys. I'm a 32-year-old white mechanic. Okay. But the question is pretty ironic that it's Mike Evans asking it. I don't know if you caught that. Did you catch that too, Dan?
Yeah, I was assuming that's why you put, no, I'm not that Mike Evans, but it was good. It was good. I like it.
So the question is, does Johnny Manziel get another shot in the NFL? Dan, you want to go first?
If Robert Griffin can get signed, I think Johnny Manziel can get signed, whether it's realistic.
That opens up a whole new can. So Malachi David with myfantasysportstalk.com got a conversation started earlier today too, in which I hate to bring everything kind of back to a political thing, but his comment was, if RG3 got a job and still Colin Kaepernick can't get a look, are we serious right now? Because I'm of the opinion RG3 is not physically capable to play football anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you right there with you. His body just can't hold up. He's just not the same player as he was as a rookie in the NFL. So it's a shame. Injuries derailed his career, but he's not going to be anything. He's going to be a training camp cut in Baltimore. That's my belief. So if he can get signed, then yeah, I think you're going to see a team take a chance on Manziel, whether it's a realistic chance where he's going to be given a chance to actually play or earn a job remains to be seen. But I can see him, being signed as at least, if nothing less than a camp body.
I don't see anything more than that. Plus the comments where he came out today, I believe on was it the Coward or Dan Patrick? Maybe it's Dan Patrick, but anyway, Johnny Manziel just did a national interview and said the Cleveland Browns should have done their homework and known that I'm not an X's and O's guy. I don't really spend that much time on the playbook.
Yeah, that was bad.
Johnny, you're trying to get a job, buddy. You don't go in there and tell the hiring manager that, I kind of like to hang out at banks and rob them occasionally, just for side money, but I never get caught. That's not smart. It's just not smart. It's just not smart. But other than that, no, I don't. He's not a starter. He is not a starter in the NFL. He's had his chance. That ship has sailed. Not baggage and all that aside, including his admission that he's not an X's and O's studying the playbook kind of guy, is that I did this research years ago. I had this debate years ago before either one of them played a single NFL game, Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans. I said that Mike Evans was going to be far better of a pro and have a much, much longer pro career than Johnny Manziel. Yeah, I was right. But the point I'm trying to make is if you go back and watch Manziel's college film where he was, Johnny Money, go back and watch his film, as I know Dan did. 55% of his completions were to Mike Evans throughout his college career. It's not hard to be a very good college player, even in a tough conference like the SEC, when you're throwing jump balls to a supreme athlete in Mike Evans and having him go and catch it. One of Johnny Manziel's most memorable college plays and one of his probably the most memorable college game against Alabama was one where he was scrambling in the middle of the field, doing donuts in the middle of the field, ended up throwing a Hail Mary toss, lob pass, an alley-oop in the middle of the field to Mike Evans, and Mike Evans just jumped up and caught it. Do you remember that, Dan?
I do. Yes. Yeah. I mean, Mike Evans kind of made Manziel. It was pretty obvious on tape just the type of catches that Evans would make. I mean, Manziel put him in nice spots, but similar to Baker Mayfield, Manziel was very much a spread system quarterback where he didn't have to throw receivers open. Receivers were open. Or if the receiver was covered, you threw to Mike Evans and he would win the jump ball. So there wasn't a lot of that. And then add on top of that, he's not an X's and O's guy, so he wasn't spending time with the playbook to learn an NFL system. So that kind of tells you a lot. If you want to be a successful NFL quarterback, you really have to put in the work, unless you're Mike Vick. And, Manziel's not Mike Vick. And Mike Vick wasn't really successful winning games. Putting up numbers, yes.
And he had a much longer career than Johnny Manziel or even think about. I mean, he was an actual quarterback. He was actually a pretty good, I would even say superstar quarterback in the NFL. Johnny Manziel is not that. And so many of his highlights were those jump balls to Mike Evans, either down the sideline or in the middle of the field. And I'm not buying that. When 55% of your completions is to one guy who is also a superstar now in the NFL, that says a little bit about it. But no, his ship has sailed. His ship has sailed. I don't see in any way. So does he stick on an NFL roster, Dan? To be the most optimistic that you can possibly be, is he a third string on any NFL roster throughout this whole season?
I mean, being the most optimistic, yes. Yeah, sure. You can be a backup or a third stringer. But realistically, I find it hard to believe, but I'm not crossing it out of the back of my mind.
But definitely not a starter, never starter in the league.
Barring injury, no.
It would have to several guys would have to
the third string and a couple quarterbacks go down, then maybe he'll see the field.
And not that I wouldn't even like to see him back on the field, just to see him try either to be Johnny Money again or to completely fall on his ass and let's put an end to this book. But I don't know that a situation arises where he is the best option for any team in the NFL at this point. But anyway, That's how we feel, Mike Evans. Sorry about your boy there, but he ain't gonna make it. Just keep doing what you do in Tampa Bay. All right, next one comes from more football here. This one comes from Arizona Sunshine Heat. Sleeper wide receiver prospects to look at for my team, the Cardinals, to draft in the later rounds. So let me go first, Dan, because you'll probably spoil it for me if you go first because you got all the knowledge and I've got something I'm excited about.
Okay, sure.
Des is answering.
She wants you to say Des Bryant.
Okay, you'll ruin the whole thing. And if we got a couple of the same names, or at least one of the same names, I'll be shocked. But okay, so right off the top, and this we were talking about later rounds, so I looked at only like 5th through 7th potential prospects here. Later rounds that could help out the Cardinals. So Marquez Valdez Scantling, South Florida, 6'4", nice hands, run a 4.3 40. That is pretty damn fast for a 6'4" guy. So that's one of the guys that kind of stuck out to me, Marquez Valdez Scantling. Are you very familiar with him, Dan?
I have not. I actually have not watched his film, and I don't even know if he's on my list, but I'm going to add him now because you just said so.
6'4", 10-inch hands, and runs a 4.3 40.
Pretty good. Pretty good numbers there, yeah.
That is worth a look to me right there. So anyway, also Trey Quinn from SMU. He's 5'11", 203 pounds with good hands, was a transfer from LSU. And all the LSU does is recruit athletes. So if he was an LSU transfer, then he might be worth a look. But caught 114 balls for 1,236 yards and 13 TDs at SMU. So that's one of those guys later rounds. I don't know. Take a look. He could be mentioned in the conversation. But here's the most intriguing one to me, Dan. Maybe this guy can play. Maybe he can't. I don't know. He's from North Carolina. Nothing blows you away about this guy. He's 5'10", 175 pounds, runs a 4.5 40. But his father's name is Ricky Proehl. His name is Austin Proehl. Ricky Proehl, I know most of you guys know, had a pretty good career with the Panthers. Maybe that has something to do with why his son went to North Carolina College. But Ricky was actually drafted by the Phoenix Cardinals at that time in the 3rd round, I believe, 1990, and ended up leading the team in receptions his rookie year. Ricky Proehl had a hell of an NFL career. That's his son, Austin Proehl.
Interesting pick. I think he's an undrafted guy, but I like it. And I think Ricky is a coach. I think he was receivers coach for the Panthers. So yeah, Madden 98, I rocked him out. So I'm with you.
Ricky Proehl was good. Yeah. Ricky Proehl was really good. So what do you think though? Isn't that worth a shot? At least bring the guy in.
Yeah.
I mean, just from the nostalgia's sake alone, right there.
Sounds good. Yes, I think the Cardinals were terrible that year, but yes.
I don't care. He's a rookie. He's a 5'10" white guy rookie.
Yeah, I had that Ryan Switzer on my Cowboys, and
he didn't have near that kind of year.
Yeah, not at all. He caught like 2 passes.
Okay, but so yeah. that was my selection. Late rounds. I was looking at like 5, 6, 7, 5, 6 round. Very late. So maybe none of these guys are. If Dan hadn't heard of Marquez Valdez Scantling, then I really pulled some crap out of the hat right there. All right, you go ahead. Answer the Sunshine Heat's question.
Yeah, a couple names that I have. Alan Lazard, who I don't know if Brandon remembers well, but I'm pretty sure he dominated his Memphis Tigers in the Liberty Bowl or whatever bowl that was.
Yeah.
But he's a stud possession receiver for Iowa State that really can make a lot of catches. He struggled with focus catches a lot, but he's got great size.
Probably shouldn't last as long as was thinking right there. Yeah.
I think he's going to probably be a day 3 pick. I think he's going to fall to that 4th, 5th round spot. Another name that I have on here is Marcel Aitman, Oklahoma State wide receiver. He might go a little bit earlier. I'm high on him. I actually have him ranked ahead of James Washington, his counterpart at Oklahoma State, who seems to be ranked higher consensusly. But
there's 3 of them, Dan. Oklahoma State had a receiving core this year because there's like 3 prospects, wide receivers, that is.
Yeah, they had quite the offense. Another name is going back to my Colorado Buffaloes, and that's Bryce Bobo. He's 6'4". He needs to fill out his frame a little bit, but he's got some skills. He's got some talent. That's a 6th, 7th round pick, maybe even an undrafted guy. But he'll come in and work. He led the Buffaloes in receiving this year, so he's a guy to keep an eye on. Keke Coutee is another name from Texas Tech. I comped him in his draft profile on the site to Tavon Austin. Now, Tavon Austin hasn't had, the most stellar NFL career, but if you use him in the right spots, like you will Keke Coutee, then you can see some electric plays happen. He's dangerous in the return game, screen passes, sweeps, different things like that. One who's probably going to go earlier than all of the guys listed, but I'm still really high on him, and I view him still as a sleeper, is Michael Gallup from Colorado State. I comped him to Quincy Enunwa, and before Enunwa got hurt with the Jets this year, previous years, he was on fire. He actually had a really good year. But I just like his speed down the field to be able to stretch it. He's not afraid to go over the middle to catch a ball. And he didn't get a lot of action in that Colorado State offense. But if he's given the time and given the role, I think he can be a special NFL player. So those are some sleeper wide receiver names. And I also did write Anthony Miller on here because if he's not a first-round pick, that's a shame.
Yeah, if he falls to you in later rounds, whatever that is, I would go ahead and snag him. But so that's just some of them. If you're looking for later round prospects, what does the Arizona receiving core even look like this year? Why do you think we got proposed this question from Arizona Sunshine?
It is bad. They lost John and Jaron Brown. They just signed ex-Dallas Cowboy Bryce Butler to go opposite Larry Fitz. They have a contract offer out to Jordan Matthews. But besides J.J. Nelson, I don't really think they have too much on that receiving core. So they're going to have to add more than one, I think, through the draft. You're going to see them draft a couple guys.
All right, there you go. Arizona Sunshine Heat. Hope he helped you out a little bit. Maybe one of those guys' names will be called to help you out in some of the later rounds in the receiving core for your Cardinals. I'd like to see Austin Proehl just in the league, just to see it. I just like maybe this guy can be the next Danny Amendola, Dan. Just pedigree, heart. They're relatively the same size. Maybe you can see that and to carry on the tradition. And I just thought it was funny once because I looked at Austin Proehl and I'm like, damn, because I wasn't familiar with Austin Proehl, but I saw it like that can't be Ricky's son. Well, it was Ricky's son, and I also didn't know he was drafted by the Cardinals. That makes too much sense. That's too perfect. Hey, I got another note here. Dan, speaking of Danny Amendola, made me think about something here, but I don't know if you saw the ESPN headline here. I hadn't read the story at all, but kind of a breaking headline for you here on My Fantasy Podcast is that Julian Edelman, damn it, my phone just went off. Okay, here we go. Julian Edelman helped stop potential school shooting after threats made on his Instagram account.
I did hear that. Good for you, Julian.
Wild, weird stuff right there. Wow. Okay, so let's move on. The next question comes from Drake Kramer, and I love this name. Dan, this is a Seinfeld name. This has Seinfeld written all over it. Kramer and Drake's Coffee Cake.
You got to love the Drake.
And the Drake. And the Drake Kramer. This sounds like a made-up name, but it's perfect for our show. So we're going to.
This is a verified account too. This is actually he reached out on Facebook, and he is a fan of the show. It is you search on Facebook, people, for Drake Kramer. Now, don't spam him, but he is real. He does exist. Pretty cool. Pretty cool name.
Awesome name. Awesome name. Awesome name. We're going to have to come up with a special Seinfeld segment, Dan, or something, because we mentioned Seinfeld on the show every episode, every single episode. Seinfeld comes up, some kind of reference, and that just speaks to the greatness and brilliance of that show. That's crazy. That 20 years plus later, that a sports podcast can reference something every single time that has something to do with the Seinfeld show. Here's the question. Dan, I love your draft profiles, but where the heck do you watch your film and see all the stuff on your prospects? I can just read your stuff, but I want to see for myself, see if you're crazy or not. Josh Allen, number one? Really? Drake Kramer. So a couple of quick notes from me, then I'll let you go. Bleacher Report has Allen falling a little bit all the way to Buffalo at 12, which was their latest mock draft. I don't know. That's kind of late. That's very optimistic for Buffalo. If he falls that far to Buffalo, then I'd tell Buffalo, go ahead and grab him. But Darnold, Rosen, Allen, that seems to be the majority consensus through the mock drafts that I've seen so far in that order. Darnold, Rosen, Allen in that order. But Mel Kiper agrees with you, Dan. Josh Allen is the number one quarterback prospect.
Yeah, I didn't. To clarify, he's not my number one overall prospect, just quarterback prospect. But yeah, I like Allen. His ceiling's definitely the highest. His arm is the most impressive to me. There's some things he has to work on, but they're all fixable. And to me, he's probably the hardest working quarterback in this draft, which kind of sets him apart. So I like it. To answer your question, where I watch all my film, 3 places. YouTube, which I think Brandon knows because it shows up on all of our search history stuff when you go to my Fantasy Sports Talk account. At least it does for me. It's probably because I'm looking at it. Number 2, I'll prep them. I'll give them some promotion, and that's Draft Breakdown. If you don't go to draftbreakdown.com to watch your film, you're crazy. I mean, they have basically every prospect. They don't always have every game. But they do a great job there of putting it all well organized for you and to easily access it. You can do it at work if you're so inclined and you have a job that's able to, but that's how I do it. It's very
not blocked
easy.
For porn on your web blocker.
Yeah, yes. It is. It doesn't come up as that, so that's good. Easily mutable. So Draft Breakdown is a good site. And the third place is just DVR. I DVR random games throughout the year. Josh Allen was on 3 nationally televised games that I was able to DVR: Iowa, Boise State, and one other one. So I DVR various ones throughout the year, and I just go back and I watch them. But that's another way. I actually like that the best. I don't always DVR enough because I get my big screen on there so I can kind of see it a little bit more clearer. But those are the 3 places, just regular YouTube searches. The reason I don't like that is a lot of them are just highlights. You can't see when they actually mess up and are bad. But Draft Breakdown gives you the whole games spliced up, or just regular DVR. And you can just sit back and watch like I do for hours on end.
Yeah, it do what you can, because no one, even these NFL draft prospects, are not watching every single play of every single guy. I don't know. Maybe if they have a really top pick and they're talking about, well, is it Darnold or Rosen or Allen? Then maybe they do have film and they're watching all the last season's games, but that's impossible. So several different places you can find your footage, but but no question to you, Dan. I mean, because, like I said, the consensus right here is actually has Allen third from all the, from Fox Sports, CBS Sports, even NBC Sports, Bleacher Report. Phonies.
They're all phonies, and I will break their thumbs if they don't believe Josh Allen's number one. I'm close with Darnold. He's my close number 2. I've kind of grown on him a little bit. His release is the ugliest part of his game, and I hate it. But it's growing on me, I guess. Rosen, I don't have very high up, and Baker Mayfield, I keep hearing as well, is high, and he just is skyrocketing down my draft board. I'm not high on him at all, but Allen, Darnold are my 1, 2. Rosen is about my 4 or 5 guy. I have Lamar Jackson actually as my 3rd quarterback. I'm still sold on him. He is not a receiver. He is a quarterback.
There you go. So that's our mailbag for this week, but we're not completely done. We got one more question from Nicholas Privets, and we're going to answer it next. Has to do with the NFL draft and our mock. How would we see it playing out? So we're going to even follow up on the last questions that we just answered a little bit further with our next question, the last one of the day. It's myself and Dan's mock draft, picks 1 through 10 next. This is My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Brandon Reed, Dan Schalk. We're about to do something that we haven't done on the podcast. We're actually about to officially, thanks to one of our listeners, readers, and viewers, of the site suggested, hey, why don't you guys do mocks, or at least break it down, picks 1 through 10, or do something, just do a mock. So we can really just tell what you guys are thinking and what you're feeling, because the more opinions we have, the better. So that's what we're going to do. Great question here from Nicholas Privets. I hope I pronounced the last name right. Dan is testing me every single week. We appreciate the wide range of questions from all over you guys. And some of you guys' names are tongue twisting me a little bit. So any ones that I slip up on, I definitely apologize for. But I'm calling you, for the sake of this show, Nicholas Privets. And the question is this: would you guys ever do like a mock draft on your show? Like just the first 10 picks, our first round even. Each guy gets a team. Just a thought for you. I enjoy this show. Appreciate it, Nicholas. And we appreciate you back. Therefore, we're going to do exactly what you asked for. Sold on your idea. We're sold. We're going to do it. So this is what myself and Dan came up with this afternoon. What we'll do, we got 3 weeks basically leading up into our live draft show, April 26th. So what we'll do is we'll break down 10 today, 10 next week, and the final picks of our first round, our complete first round, the week leading up to the NFL draft and our live draft show. So we got picks 1 through 10 coming up for you today. And we'll talk about that and see how similar we are and how off we may be or what we're thinking. I'll be honest with you. I didn't go to the links that Dan went and do mock trades. I'm going straight up with the picks as they are now because it's impossible to know. Although Dan's brain is moving and working and shaking, so he's like, that ain't gonna happen. Trade, and I'm not to that level. Okay, so I'm going with the selections as they are right now. But I will tell you this, Dan. I looked at it, and you don't know what I picked. You may know my first pick, but you don't know exactly what my top 10 is, and I do know yours. And we were only one player off of the top 10, meaning there was only one player in both of our top 10s that we disagreed on. One was out, one was in both of our mock drafts. So what do you think about that?
Interesting. That's and I'm sure we're probably going to be crazy wrong on actual draft night because that's just the way it works. And that's part of the reason why I don't like mock drafts is because you can try and predict it all you want, but you really have no idea what those NFL teams are actually thinking. There's so many smoke screens nowadays. Like the one I'm really buying into could be a complete joke, and that's the Bills moving up to the number 2 pick. I believe that they're going to do their best, but it could be a complete crock as well. So that's the tough part with mock drafts.
Well, and you also don't know exactly what teams are thinking and what they actually think about prospects. They're not going to show all their cards or tip their hat to what they think about a prospect. That's stupid. They'll never do that. So a team could be really high on, I liked what Darnold's doing. He had a perfect, pro day, liked what he did. All of our scouts were impressed. But they could be thinking Lamar Jackson is our guy, so you never know. But here's what I have. We'll start out with myself and we'll go through my top 10. I have number 1, Cleveland Browns selecting Josh Allen, quarterback, Wyoming. I have the New York Giants keeping their pick, and I have them going with Josh Rosen, quarterback, UCLA. Number 3, I have the New York Jets selecting Sam Darnold, quarterback, USC. So 3 quarterbacks are in the top 3. Next, I have the Cleveland Browns ultimate dream scenario. They also get their running back, Saquon Barkley, Penn State. Number 5, I have Denver selecting Minkah Fitzpatrick, defensive back, Alabama. 6, Indianapolis Colts select Quentin Nelson, guard, Notre Dame. Number 7, Tampa Bay, Bradley Chubb, defensive end, North Carolina State. Number 8, Chicago, Mike McGlinchey, offensive tackle, Notre Dame. I know I messed his name up too. Mike McGlinchey. That's what I'm going to go with. Number 9, San Francisco goes with Tremaine Edmonds, linebacker, Virginia Tech. And then finally, Oakland, and we agree here, Dan, Vita Vea, defensive tackle from Washington. That is my top 10. And I got a little bit of explanation into these picks we'll talk about in just a second, and we'll probably publish this on the website with a little bit of an explanation, mock draft version 1, picks 1 through 10 of what myself and Dan think. So there you go, Dan. That's my top 10.
All right. Similar, but a little different. I have the Browns taking quarterback number 1, Sam Darnold. I have the Bills trading up to number 2 with the Giants and getting a quarterback in Josh Rosen. Number 3, the Jets. I have them taking Josh Allen. The Browns, just like you, get their dream scenario, get their QB at 1, and they still get Saquon Barkley at 4. The Broncos, I actually have them going with the plethora. Get somebody opposite Von Miller to rush that passer, make that defense great again. And that's Bradley Chubb going to the Broncos. The Colts take the next best player available on the board, and that's Minkah Fitzpatrick. Their defense is filled with no-namers and guys who really can't do much. Fitzpatrick brings that leadership ability, so I like him. I have the Cardinals moving up to 7 to trade with the Bucs, and they get a quarterback, Baker Mayfield. Chicago, Tremaine Edmonds, linebacker, Virginia Tech. The 49ers, Quentin Nelson, guard out of Notre Dame. And as you said, the Raiders, Vita Vea, my number 1 overall player in the entire draft, goes to number 10. And John Gruden gets his next Warren Sapp.
Hey, that would be something right there. And I think that falls in the line pretty good. And I like what you had going on there, especially when you're talking about Denver. I could see that either way with Bradley Chubb. But I also could see that they were looking for a replacement for Aqib Talib and trying to keep that no-fly zone going. So that's the way I went So, but real quickly, explanations is I think Cleveland is going to get back in this quarterback sweepstakes in the draft like they always do. They're addicted to it. And they're basically going to go with the best, whoever they think the best prospect is. And I don't know. I mean, I seriously don't. I'm picking Josh Allen now. But the reasoning behind that is because a lot of scouts and people, even yourself, Dan, said this guy has a really strong arm. And something else you got to figure in is when you're talking about where you're going to play. In a lot of the AFC teams, especially in the Northeast like that, like Cleveland, who play some in bad weather and some driving winds, need a strong arm quarterback. So I don't know. Maybe that's their prospect they're thinking. We'll see. But either way, I think a guy's going to sit behind Tyrod this year and then play maybe next year. We'll see what happens. But now, as far as the Giants go, I probably would trade out, but if they're going to keep this pick, and I had to predict, I think they're also going to get in the quarterback sweepstakes because Eli Manning is 37 years old, which I think he still has several more good years, but he is 37 years old, plus a second pick overall doesn't come around for the Giants very often, so they better make the most of this pick and look long-term for it, because they may not see a number overall 2 pick or a top 5 pick period with their history and success. So and number 3 here is, I think the Jets traded up to get a quarterback. I think they probably should go Barkley here, but I'm afraid they want a quarterback, and that's probably what they'll do. The Browns, like we said, they get extremely lucky. They get their quarterback, and then everybody else jumps up or moves up or trades up in the spots above them to get quarterbacks, and Saquon Barkley falls into their lap, which would be extremely lucky for them. Denver, like I said, needs to replace Aqib Talib, keep that no-fly zone going, so I would see Fitzpatrick, maybe even Denzel Ward there, that type of player, but I couldn't argue with Bradley Chubb either. Colts need protection, plain and simple. Just plain and simple, they need protection. They're going to take whoever they think that best prospect is, and I think it would be Quentin Nelson. Bradley Chubb, along with JPP, if you think about that, to the Bucs could be a nasty little combo. I know you were down on JPP, Dan, because he only has one hand, and like you said last week, he wasn't even that great. He was tailing off with 2 hands. Now he only has one, but just he has a big club. And just the prospect of that sounds very intriguing to me. So you never know what they're thinking. Bears defense was pretty top 10 last season, pretty good. They need to work on protecting their young franchise quarterback. So that's why I went with Mike McGlinchey, offensive tackle, Notre Dame. The 49ers need a lot of D help. So I think they go with the best available defensive option there, preferably one that helps them stop the run, which they were horrible at last year. And then the Raiders just need to get nasty again. And start pushing people around. That's why I went with the same guy you went with, Vita Vea.
Yeah, I'll start right with Vea. He's my number one guy in the entire draft, and I think John Gruden's going to see him. He's going to see a version of Warren Sapp that he can build that kind of nasty defense that took him to a Super Bowl. So they're going to get him. I have the 49ers taking Quentin Nelson. Their offensive line's okay, but John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, they want to run the football. They want to protect Jimmy Garoppolo. Quentin Nelson's the best offensive lineman in this draft. So hands down, he would be a great pick there. Tremaine Edmonds to the Bears. He's the number one linebacker in this draft. The guy's just nasty. He's 19 years old. He's insane. Put on his tape from Virginia Tech. He'll be blown away. He's going to be a versatile guy that's going to be able to impact a game for many years. So he's going to Chicago. The Cardinals need a quarterback. He signed Sam Bradford. He's going to sneeze and he's going to break a rib. So you need to get some other type of names there. Blaine Gabbert now gone to Brandon's Tennessee Titans. So, they're going to trade up for their guy. Baker Mayfield's the fourth guy there. I'm not sold on Mayfield, but supposedly NFL teams are. So he's probably going to go in the top 10. I don't even have a first-round grade on him. I don't even have a second-round grade on him. So he's going to go high, but I don't think it's deserving. So look out, Cards fans. You could be in for a world of hurt. The Colts, they don't have anybody on the secondary who can actually cover, tackle, show up on the field. They like to have 10 men on the field a lot. So Minkah Fitzpatrick, he'll be the leader of that unit right away and just kind of step in, can cover, can show up and run support. He's probably the best defensive back in this class. As I mentioned, Broncos get Bradley Chubb, somebody outside of Von Miller that can rush the passer, make that pass rush as dangerous that got him that Super Bowl victory. Browns getting Saquon Barkley. It's pure luck. I can see him going anywhere 1, 2, or 3. I actually wrote him to the Jets at 3, but it's tough to see them move up, mortgage those picks for a running back. So that's why I have them taking Josh Allen, my number one quarterback. He might not be able to play right away, although I think he can. But the Jets don't have a whole lot of talent, so it might be a little scary situation. And then Rosen going to the Bills. They scouted him a ton this year at UCLA. Nearly every game they attended with scouts in the audience.
How did they think about that Memphis game?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, they may have liked it a little bit. I mean, he did put up some points, but
he did put up numbers, but against a bad Memphis defense. Let's be honest. Yeah.
So I'm not sold on Rosen. That's why I'm actually kind of hoping he or Mayfield goes to the Bills, because as you've probably listened, if you listen to the show, I'm not a huge Bills fan. So I think that would set their franchise back for years. And then Darnold, I agree. He's probably the number one prospect on most experts, not mine, but most. So going to the Browns, let's see if the Browns can actually hit on a quarterback prospect. We'll see.
Well, there you go, Nicholas Privets. Appreciate it, man. We appreciate you. I'm glad you enjoyed the show. We're going to keep it going and see what you started. You didn't just start something this week. You didn't have just a question for this week. We're going to continue this up until our live draft show, because we're going to keep breaking it down and basically do the whole first round of our mock drafts and give it to you piece by piece, week by week. So we appreciate it, and thank you for listening to the show. Thank all you guys for listening to the show. And check out the website, myfantasysportstalk.com, which a lot of stuff going on there, entertainment, along with Dan's draft profiles, all that. And of course, next week, check out the show when Will Masasic from Steeler Fury Podcast is going to be here on our podcast, My Fantasy Podcast, with us next week. So a lot of big things happening, a lot of stuff down the pipe, and just a great show today, Dan.
As always, Brandon, and it stinks I'm not a champion on this podcast, but I hope to be again soon. And yeah, definitely just check out the site. My draft profiles are going up like crazy. Baseball coverage, predicting some baseball games on occasion. Entertainment section blowing up. We have some things in the works, so I'm excited. Draft time's our busiest time, so make sure you stay tuned. And I'm excited to where the end of this month can lead us on myfantasysportstalk.com. Looking forward to it.
There you go. Never a slow time at myfantasysportstalk.com. And I ain't gonna lie, Dan, my heart smiled just a little bit when you didn't win that championship. Just a friendly competition thing going on between us, because you still only got one more title than I do. So,
but I do have one more.
You do have one more. You do have one more. Baseball. This baseball could be huge because I know you want it. I don't think I'm going to compete. I mean, I just hope to be. I'm confident I'll be in the playoffs. I think I've only missed the playoffs in any of our league once, so I'm going to be there. I just don't know how good my team is, and your team is looking very good. So this baseball season could hurt me a little bit, but congrats to Daniel Kalura. Congrats to Villanova, and thank all you guys for listening and watching another episode of My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsDog.com. We'll be right back at it next week. So until then, I'm Brandon Reed for my co-host, Dan Shaw. Next week. Later. Peace.